So, speaking of Portugal, I was having.
All right. You're up, sir.
All right.
You're in your 10th term, aren't you, something like that?
It feels like that. That's funny. Travis is the one that got me in. He recruited me. And then Joel's the one that wrote me back in.
Yeah,
I was on my way out.
you're gonna be like our FDR.
Feeling you in.
All right, let's call this. Thank you all for your patience as we got this set up. Definitely thank you to the BA for allowing us to host our meetings here as well. Call this meeting to order at 6:05 PM. Do we have attendance all taken care of?
Yes.
All right, do we have a quorum?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Just here alone.
That we do. Glad to see so many people in person, and it's been a long time coming. So I appreciate you all for making the trip here to do this. So I'm gonna welcome some new members. First off, he has sat in on some of our meetings before, but just a quick introduction, a little something about yourself, kind of what you do and any fun hobbies or anything like that. So we'll start with Will Elder.
Good to be here. I'm really excited to actually join. So I'm Will Elder. I'm with the City of Vancouver. I'm the Environmental Services Manager, which means that I work with the solid waste team, our urban forestry team, as well as our water education center. I've been with the city since November, so fairly new to the city. However, I did work with a consultant that was doing some work around the regional system study. And prior to that, worked with Metro for about 14 years. So very familiar with solid waste, especially in the region, but excited to be here in Vancouver and Clark County, where we've got a lot of great work ahead of us. And as far as hobbies, I like floating, kayaking, gardening, apparently wineries. And then traveling.
Awesome, awesome. Well, glad to have you here, Will. So Will replaces,
Ruben?
nope.
Yeah.
Kim Harless, sorry. I had a brain fart there. So replaces Kim Harless on the commission. Next up, Josh Brown. So Josh replaces Derek Ranta. So with the city of Vancouver and Waste Connections, they get appointed spots, so it's not voted upon or approved or anything like that. Those two entities get to appoint who they want, so they automatically get accepted. But one of my good friends, Josh Brown, glad to see you here in person. And then a little bit about yourself, how long you've been with the company, experience, all that. What you like
Sure,
to do for
yeah,
fun.
thanks for having me. Good to be at the meeting. So I've been with Waste Connections a little over 18 years. I grew up in the garbage business in northern Nevada. We had a small family company that we sold to Waste Connections in 2007. So they've had to put up with me since then, which has been a great, great career. I've moved around, ran companies in Idaho for us, Montana for us for several years. And as I was mentioning earlier, I ran our companies in the Portland market for the last 8 or so years. Actually worked with Will a little bit at Metro previously. So new to this market, but definitely not new to the industry. I have sat on several SWAC boards in the Metro area and in Columbia County as well. I oversaw that market too. So SWAC is it's not foreign to me, but this group is obviously. So great to be here. And so, yeah, I replaced Derek Ranta. Derek is now my new boss, so I have to watch what I say about him in certain contexts. He got a promotion. He got a promotion. And Jason Hudson, who's been a longtime leader in our company, actually retired. So Derek replaced him. So hobbies, I like to golf, like to snow ski and do a lot of mountain biking. So thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh. And then it says Thomas. Nobody likes to go by Tommy.
Thomas is fine. Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. Well, hey, truly, whatever. Yeah.
So a little bit about yourself.
Yep. So my name is Thomas Hansen. It's nice to meet you guys. Thank you for having me. I work in construction management right here in Clark County. I've had the opportunity to work both for and on behalf of some of the facilities and programs we have here, including Waste Connections, which kind of led into this opportunity here. Most importantly, I've lived in Park County my whole life. So while this will be my first SWAC appointment, it does seem like a good opportunity to get my foot in the door, help serve this county that's been very good to me in my life. So thank you guys.
Awesome. Glad to have you on part.
Yeah.
All right. So did everyone get a chance to review the meeting minutes from May 1st? And if I get someone to make a motion to approve,
I read them, but I wasn't in the meeting, but I will put in a motion to approve.
all right. Can I get a second?
I wasn't here either, but I'll second
All
that.
right. Gonna be one of those fluid meetings.
Yeah, I was like, apparently I gave an update, so. Second, third.
All in favor?
Alright.
Any opposed? So moves. All right, on to program updates. Solid waste and recycling finance, Jeff.
So Jeff's not coming, so I might have to do an update for him. Do we have his spreadsheet? Awesome.
I was like, you should be good at this by now.
We'll see, we'll see. Watch me just tank. There.
See if we can go in just a smidge. Love it. I wish you guys could see my screen. I have so many things.
Amanda's amazing, and we have snacks and drinks and stuff like that if you guys need anything.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are in the transition of moving from the public health department to the public works department. We physically moved over, but our financials have not completely moved over. And I think that's because we were notified that we were transitioning from one department to the next in March. So there was a budget impact, and there was also sort of like, when we do our annual budget, it's usually submitted in March. And so anyway, public health is still doing our budget, which is why Jeff would still be here. Next year, we'll have our public works finance team be presenting on this. So this reflects revenue. These are actuals. So I believe this reflects through the end of June. And so here you can just see the revenue that is coming in from our administrative fee, which is through the master services agreement. And you can see that annual, that's a flat rate that comes in every month. Then you can see the recycling single family, recycling multifamily, yard debris. That's all revenue that's generated from our collection contracts. The tipping fees, that includes the $1.43 health fee that I think we've talked about. It's listed in the solid waste management plan. It's highlighted in blue, and there's a note in blue also that's just identifying that we're in the process of evaluating that fee, especially now that we're transitioning from one department to the next. So sort of looking at those indirect allocations. So as we provide updates to you quarterly, you're going to notice that this is going to look different when Public Works presents on it, but also I think there's going to be some decisions as to maybe how that fee might change or might look different. So that's revenues. In terms of expenditures, just an overview. I think the biggest thing that's come up with this group previously has been related to professional services, and that's a little bit further down, I think, right? You have them on, no, these are just controllables.
Yeah.
So I guess they're not reflected on this.
They are
one
not.
view.
I have these.
Okay, well, I looked at another report that I saw earlier today. Our professional services are about half of what we were projecting. So we've done a great job of cutting, bringing that work back in-house. We'll present on that more to you next time. And we're really proud of that, both Sarah Kearns and I, as we're working on really trimming down those professional services. So that is what we just looked at was for our enterprise fund. This is for the special revenue fund that was created as a result of the master services agreement. This is the fund that's restricted to capital improvements for the transfer stations. So you'll see the revenue that's been generated each month, that this is amount that's based on tonnage coming into the transfer stations. So it's exciting to see this grow. Jeff was also able to capture the investment interest, and that's a county pool. So sometimes those numbers take a few months to get, but he was able to get it anticipating these meetings. So it's exciting. Probably don't have a lot of answers to questions.
That's why I was like,
Try.
I've got a question, but so back on the first slide, one of the revenue items was the Leichner landfill, and it was 60,000. I'm assuming that's just reimbursement of administrative costs to the
It's a
county.
good question. So that is and that's an error because it should be 80,000 if it says 60.
I could be
Yeah,
my vision.
no, you're right. It says,
Okay.
it says 60. It is supposed to be 80. So,
Okay,
and since you're part of the Leichner Landfill Oversight Committee meetings, we do, part of Tina's time is budgeted.
yeah.
So, so that's just reflected. It comes out of the special revenue fund for Leichner, and then it gets credited as revenue to enterprise
Okay.
fund.
I don't have the ability, oh, go ahead.
Okay. Thanks for bringing up the professional services and exciting news. that-
You'll see it. You'll see it next time. I think, I'm not sure if we just lost a page from when he sent it to us, but maybe it wasn't on this one. Okay.
It was the thing that originally caught my eye at my first meeting.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was, I think, probably like the biggest budget
For sure.
category of all of them.
Mhm.
And so cutting that in half is significant. I'm
Yeah.
curious, like, what does that change for?
Yeah.
For the.
Um, I think even just using the solid waste management plan as an example, like Sarah Schrader, the project manager, has just done such an amazing job doing the editing, doing the writing, working on it. We didn't have to pay a consultant to do that. Just even looking at the plan, looking at the hard copies, we've gotten so many compliments, like, who did this for you? We're like, oh, we did this in-house. We had a consultant help design it, but the content writing. And so just like, that's an example of where we've been able to say, okay, well, where can we, not pay a consultant to do something? Where can we kind of dial in our work?
Mhm.
So we'll be continuing to report out on that. This is just a weird time with finances as we're transitioning between departments.
Yep.
Uh,
To clarify my question, like, are there any things we can brag about that we can now do? Throw more pizza parties?
oh, brag about that we can do. I'll get back to you on that. There's so many things we could brag about. I'll give an update on like all the things that we're doing. So then,
Yes.
you can brag about all of them.
Yeah.
I think some of it is like the capital improvement program work that we've been able to do. That's huge. And the idea, being able to review and develop and assess what projects do we want to move forward with.
Yeah.
That is all new work. That was not work that we were doing at all. It was all a result of that contract we got in place last fall. So being able to pretty much create a whole new program, we didn't add staff, so it's like, well, now we have to reallocate what the staff is doing.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it seems very significant, like
Mhm.
that a lot of programs could potentially grow with all that money being freed up. So I'd love to see what opportunities there are to do that. Maybe capacity building, outreach, communications.
We'll
increasing
show you.
inclusion.
We'll show you what we're up to.
Kind of a follow-up on that, if I may. And I'm not able to read all those numbers. I don't know if we're gonna get that copy of the chart afterwards, but if we are, that'd be great.
And your booklet too.
Oh, I think it's in your binder.
It's under.
Amanda is so on top of it.
I'll take those back again.
Yeah, she has
That
all
out
of
if
this
you want it
updated.
too, but you can take that out.
Yeah.
Question, I had Derek was kind enough to spend some time with me, in trying to understand, I'll just say, the flow of things. And one of the things that he had shared with me was that when you take the short version is that when you take the revenue from recycling, and then you take the overall operation, that we have about a $56 a ton shortfall in recycling revenue versus the cost of processing. And so the fees from the basic garbage collection offsets the loss of the handling of recyclables. That's kind of my interpretation of it. My question is, do these numbers include that, or these numbers actually go beyond those numbers? In other words, is there a portion of this that shows revenue coming from Waste Connections back to the county per se?
Not here.
All right.
And I don't know, Josh, if you want to get into it at all, but I mean, there's some, we negotiate set fees that we get based on what you're talking about, but I don't have an itemized breakdown of how that's calculated out, unless Josh wants to get to me. You might have it memorized, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a full 8 weeks in.
Yeah.
Certainly don't.
I don't expect the specifics. This is an area that we've been trying to understand.
Yeah.
And actually, you used a word that I think is gonna come up near the end, and that's communications. And one of the things that I learned with the conversation with Derek is we may be coming to these meetings and understanding and getting some answers to questions, but the average resident within the county is not. And so how do we reach the county? And there's some information in that arena that we'll discuss, later on. But I was just curious about these, whether it's the whole picture. Obviously, it's not the complete garbage or county financial profile on this issue. So that's,
And I guess I would just add, again, the new guy, I'm learning a tremendous amount with this market, which is quite complex. I think, I don't want to overspeak well, but I think some of the money in capital improvement funds and some of the other fees that are there are coming from us, right?
Yeah.
That support that. Now, I don't know if that answers this question directly, but.
I think, and I only know just because we've asked this one a couple of times, so it's like, we have, we have our administrative fee that we contractually negotiate, and then there's the fee that's like a part of that, that's going to capital improvements. But in terms of the breakdown and how recyclables and the commodities, like the end markets for those affect an increase or decrease, and that is not reflected here, and that isn't, because those markets change. They're so unstable that it's in our interest to say, even our admin fee, it's like, this is the flat rate that we get each month. And this is every year we negotiate that.
all right.
I was gonna say, the one thing, it's interesting because when it comes to recycling, I believe there are 6 different contracts that the different so the county and a few additional jurisdictions that have partnered with the county, the city, I think Camas, Battleground. So each one of these contracts will have different terms. And so in the case of the city of Vancouver, I believe our commercial collection has a subsidy built in. We call it a pilot. And it basically happened during the China sword, where we wanted to continue this. It was very likely that it would have stopped had the city not stepped in. But I suspect that's unique to the city of Vancouver and not necessarily reflective of a lot of these. So that's the one thing that's a little different about the fees at the transfer station, which is, the tipping fees established, and each jurisdiction will pay that consistently, but the recycling isn't consistent. And so it's always really difficult to make kind of a broad statement about the recycling. You almost have to look at each individual contract.
Well, that's the reason, just a quick point of reference. We understand that the recycling is a moving market, and there's roughly 8 pricing zones in the United States or in North America for those. And so with the new location, not only for us in the having the transfer station, but also in the site for Waste Connections, rail has been discussed. Because the difference on the tonnage reported, the tonnage of specific recyclables reported by Waste Connections to us, where we had a $1.7 million return locally, they had a $22 million value in the United States. So what's the cost of rail to possibly move some of our tonnage into higher return markets? And that's part of with taking advantage of what's going on right now with this upgrade in their facility and our fourth station, as far as being able to maximize the return on what we're currently recycling, and hopefully with their new technology, increase the number of items that can be recycled.
Yeah.
So,
One of the things that, you know, I mentioned the exciting things that are happening, and I don't know if we want to go into this too far, but you know, the Recycling Reform Act was just adopted, and we're in the process of, not we, the state is in the process of rulemaking, which will take a few years, but this is going to be a game changer for everyone involved in the recycling market, from the, you know, the customer to the jurisdiction to the actual processor and markets. And so even what we're talking about today will be drastically different in 4 or 5 years.
And that's why you have Travis is gonna give us a big update on that too. Yeah, so, you know.
Sort of.
So no big thing.
I got wine to drink, so we'll cover it.
So one last thing about finance too is that, and Travis might touch on this a little bit too, but part of our revenue is through grant funds. And we get those grant funds through the Model Toxics Control Act, through the Local Solid Waste Financial Assistance Grant. There's a possibility that some of those grant funds might get reduced. And so the benefit of cutting professional services is also that we don't have to cut programmatic things if we lose some of that funding. So just in terms of like, hey, we might not be able to do a whole bunch of extra things, but we don't have to stop the things that we are doing. So just wanted to, I don't want to be a doom and gloom person. I didn't want to mention that, but I did, you know, in case that does happen, that is something that we are very much looking at in terms of budgeting and in finance. Okay, so.
All right. Move on, solid waste enforcement, Chuck.
Back here,
I didn't see him.
do you just want to give that small little tiny baby update?
Is it that he's retired?
Yeah, he is retiring. I think maybe he just decided to do it today. He's a wonderful person. We got to work with him when we worked at Public Health. He's always got so much energy and great spirit. I don't think a lot of you either have met him or haven't worked with him much, because I think Kimberly was providing the updates and Melissa was frequently here. So he is going to be retiring at the end of August, and we're going to have I didn't know if Sean was going to, maybe he'll participate in the next meeting. So you'll meet the next SWAC meeting, you'll meet who's taking over for solid waste enforcement. I guess I'm just going to keep talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Solid waste operations, so well.
I know, I guess it's just my meeting now. Oh, okay, I gave Amanda notes earlier, so I had a whole bunch of updates on projects that we're doing. So we're right now doing a cost benefit analysis of owning the transfer stations. That's a lot of financial modeling, a lot of discussions. We got the draft, we reviewed the draft with our Regional Solid Waste System Steering Committee. Will's been a part of reviewing that draft, and we will hope to have that finalized in September, October. I anticipate bringing that to city councils, start talking about that with the cities and try to get, you know, see where the cities are in terms of how they feel based on what the outcomes of that analysis provides. Mike's going to give a little update on the North County Regional Transfer Station Study, and Sarah's going to give an update on the Solid Waste Management Plan. So I'm going to skip over those. Other than that, you know, over the last few months, the biggest news was that we just ended our last grant cycle with Local Solid Waste Financial Assistance. This was a really monumental cycle for us because we didn't have to send a bunch of grant funds back. We were able to pretty much utilize all of the funding except for like $20,000 or so, I think we looked at today with finance, which is really amazing. And so we've had a lot of administrative issues with this one over the years. Ecologies, sometimes we've had different managers turnover. We had a lot of kind of confusion when you have one manager to the next, like, okay, someone else wrote the grant, someone else is managing the grant. So this was the first time that Sarah and I have had a grant from start to finish, and we're really proud of, you know, only having a 6% variance at the end. So that was really great. Biggest, obviously, most significant outcome of this grant cycle is going to be the adoption of the Solid Waste Management Plan, which should go to County Council. I don't want to steal any of Sarah's thunder, so I won't say, but that is anticipated at September 23rd. So mark your calendars, and she'll mention that as well. We do have a lot of stuff going on at the Leichner landfill site. There's a lot of the city of Vancouver is putting their Public Works Operations Center out there. We're resurveying it. We're doing a boundary line adjustment. We're doing a repair on the liner. So we have a lot of activity out at that site. We've got some things going on at the English Pit site. We have to decommission a couple of wells because there's a whole bunch of development going on out there too, so. Not as exciting, but that's what we've been up to, so, and then I'll.
Did you want Mike to go or?
Oh, yeah, let's have my coat, yeah.
Mike, are you all ready?
Sorry, I'm having Zoom troubles, but yeah, get me started, please. So some of you have seen Carl's presentation at the last meeting, and this is sort of just a quick update. We have made some significant progress on the siting criteria and the programming of the site itself, which is sort of a mock-up of what the site might look like. And we've gone ahead and started to route that around internally. And as you know, you've seen this slide before. These facilities are essential public facilities. They're going to be here for 60 plus years, and we've got to fit into the community that we're working with. So our next slide, please. So once again, I don't know if you've seen this or not, but the siting area right now is 502 North, and likely sites will be probably down the I-5 gut in that area, but we obviously are looking in the battleground area, wherever it might fit in well in that whole region there. Next slide. So we had a kickoff meeting with the internal siting review committee, which consists of managers from community development, community planning, transportation. And what we did is we let them review the siting criteria and the programming, the schedules, and provide feedback on what we were proposing to utilize as criteria. They reviewed the regulatory, operational, environmental considerations that we're looking at, and then, advise the county team on, some of the internal priorities, some concerns such as, rural roads, that kind of thing, the impact on rural roads if we were to put one away from major arterials. That was a big thing. Transportation is always a large part of these facilities. So our next update is this project is now on the website, and this is the web page. It's out there, and we will be updating this as we make progress in this project. And right now, I think it's pretty bare bones, but we'll be populating it sooner than later. Next slide. And really, our next step is to start getting this out to the public. I think public information workshops in August is probably not going to happen. It'll probably be more like September, October. But we are getting started with a very broad area screening process. And it's utilizing some criteria that right now for prime agriculture, the county is in the process of reviewing the prime agricultural lands in the county. Some may stay in, some may leave and become available for development. And we're running it with and without those to see what impacts that might have. But right now, prime agriculture is considered a pass-fail. And so if it is in prime agricultural land, it's out of this study. We plan to complete the broad area site screening in December and January, and then move on to more outreach and give you guys some additional updates. And that's about what I have for today. And just to ask, are there any questions as to what we're proposing to do? Because I unfortunately did not get the invite to the last meeting when Carl made the presentation. So I know what was said, but I don't know what questions came up.
I have one question. Is rail included in your site criteria?
No.
You said early on that this was a projection of, I believe it was 30 to 50 years. As far as
60.
press.
60.
Okay, and if the industry is talking about rail to transport the waste and recycled, why is rail not included in the criteria?
Well, it's technically we're looking to continue the barge operations. And quite frankly, rail is unreliable and the industry is moving away from it. And we've seen disruptions in Snohomish County, we've seen it in other places. I've actually run a rail system in Lewis County, and I got to tell you, it is not the way to go. But it's not necessarily ruled out either. If there was going to be rail, it would likely be a hub down in the port. So there would still be some type of short-term rail. But right now we're, pretty well locked into our current system and plan around that.
All the information about not only from Waste Connections, but also in the industry mentions rail specifically for the future. And we're on, if you look at the state of Washington, you have the Seattle to Portland corridor, and then you have the corridors from Portland to Spokane, Seattle to Spokane, as far as major rail. And you already said that you're looking for a site close to I-5, which is close to that major Seattle-Portland site. So I just would ask that it be considered or more definitively looked at and be prepared to address it in a follow-up meeting.
We will close this discussion out with providing you an opportunity, each of you an opportunity to review the siting criteria and programming, and you can comment on that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Could you say more about why rail is not a good choice?
It's often disrupted is number one thing that we've seen over the years with it. And it's a variety of issues, and a lot of them are right here in the switching. And the other piece is that right now we're using an Oregon landfill. And so that is actually a different rail system. And you've got Union Pacific and Burlington Northern, and I'm trying to remember which one is on which side. Josh, do you remember?
I don't remember, Mike.
It's Union Pacific on the Oregon side and BNSF.
Right. Correct. And so that we used in Lewis County, we used the Washington system to go to Roosevelt, and I would say it was fairly reliable, but over the years it's gotten less reliable. And like I said, we're not ruling it out. In fact, there's been discussions about the county rail system. But at this point where we're generally looking at transportation over road.
Joe, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback on that. I know many of you may know that I spent 10 years in the trucking industry, but actually for about 4 of those years, I worked for a transloader. So I worked for a company that loaded and unloaded rail cars up in Longview. And yeah, I can attest to that, listen, if you've got a product that you want it shipped for the cheapest amount possible, but it doesn't really matter when it leaves and it doesn't really matter when it arrives, at your customer's place, then rail's a great opportunity. But yeah, if it's, let's call it, 10 rail cars a day, and they have to leave every day, then yeah, you can really create a bottleneck when all they need is one reason to stop shipping, which can be just about any reason, and they will. Yeah.
And that's what I would say we experienced with Lewis County. It would be the switching crews down here, and we would either not get our containers, which was really the just-in-time thing.
Right.
We could hold containers at the intermodal yard in Centralia, but we could not have containers.
Right.
And that return container thing was a huge deal. And although we've occasionally had those problems with the barge, the barge has been remarkably successful in this county.
Right.
And so I'm not ruling it out, and you're all welcome to comment on that. But right now, I'm not aware of any rail criteria that's in there.
Yeah. No, Mike, I hear you loud and clear that I'm certain that I can only imagine how many days you're like, I can see the rail cars. They are right there. And the switching crew just goes, nope, we're going home. Yeah.
Well, when
the transloader I
I
worked
used
for
to
was-
see, yeah, I used to
Yeah.
see, well, when I was living up there and my girlfriend or
Mhm.
significant other now, she was down here and I remember I'd drive under the overpass and there would be the LeMay containers sitting there that we didn't
Mhm.
get.
Yeah.
And so that it has caused problems, like I said, it was in all the news up in Snohomish.
Mhm.
And they had Waste Management had a truck.
Yeah.
And so it's the thing, it is that trucking is the most reliable way to go. But it's also more expensive than barge or rail. So those are kind of always been the transportation trade-offs. And that's just my years of experience going back to the mid 90s. And so I've seen all three types of systems, and I would still recommend barge over all three of them with a short truck haul. We have one of the most unique systems in the country here, except on the East Coast and in the Mississippi area, where we have that ability to barge. So that's one of the things, but everybody's, we'll get this out to you. Make sure if you're interested in reviewing them, ask them, Amber, to get it to you. And, we'll consider the comments.
Just as a quick footnote.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about barging up the river to garbage to the landfill. I'm talking about rail to the secondary markets to resell recyclables. That's where the money is.
Oh yeah,
And-
this is all garbage. That's all we're talking about.
I'm talking about the recyclables.
Oh, okay. Well, this is not part of that.
The tonnage that we separate recyclables right now to get the most money for what we're sorting. Not the garbage.
I understand that, but this is a siting criteria for a straight transfer station, not a MRF. Any more questions or?
So the transfer station is taking exclusively trash? Nothing gets diverted from the landfill?
Not really.
I'm confused in what you're
I
saying.
mean, there is some floor sort, but I wouldn't call that a significant amount of material. We track that through the minimum annual recycling requirement at the facilities, but it's generally about 10% gets sorted off the floor.
And taken,
They're required to do that. And the rest of it is just generally trash. And, so it's
that
stacked.
10%,
Pardon
is
me?
it, that 10%, is it going to a MRF? Is it going to compost? Is it, what is that material?
It's kind of just going to some various end markets. I mean, some of it's like used to be lumber was a big one, metals, so that goes to the metal markets, but the lumber and wood waste markets are just tubing. First, they wouldn't take as hog fuel, they wouldn't take painted and lumber or any chemically treated lumber. So that was a lot of the lumber that was coming out of the C&D, if any demo jobs. If it's clean wood, we used to be able to get rid of it really easy in the hog fuel market. It would be ground at West Van, but I don't know if that's been reported out or not, but that market is really hurting right now.
I guess the reason that I'm interested in this line of inquiry about rail versus short haul, barge, et cetera, it sounds like there's not been a decision made about what choice of logistics, and it seems like the team is open to doing any one of those things. So there's nothing that's been ruled out. So I'd be really interested to see some kind of, and I imagine the public would be interested to see some kind of analysis of like what the costs and benefits are, like as objectively as possible. Because I mean, we know that transfer stations are extremely high impact for communities, and like if we can minimize the impact to the public, and weigh that against, cost, environmental impact, et cetera. I think like having numbers or being able to demonstrate this in some way for the public with data, I think would be something I would request. I don't know what format it would be presented in, but I'm sure that folks who are more educated than me on this could figure that out.
Well, so
Or-
how this kind of works is that we are using GIS data right now to figure out if there's even sites that we can utilize. And I think it starts out with where the broad is we're looking up to 15 sites. I think we're going to be lucky to find 5 to 10 that might work out. And then if there's proximity to rail, which there may or may not be, you know, we can go back and evaluate which is going to be the most cost effective in terms of handling. The one thing you don't want to do with waste is really double or triple handle it. So that's the main thing. Once you put it in that can, you want it handled as little as possible. And that's kind of part of the issues with, you know, mobbing and demobbing. I mean, right now it goes, you know, down to the Tidewater barge head, gets stuck on the barge, and then it's offloaded and short hauled then to Finley Buttes. So it's handled, but I mean, every time you handle it, it costs money. So that would be a criteria that would be looked at, you know, in terms of cost later down the road, and then the proximity to where rail really is. And is there a rail head? So, you know, that's the other piece is, are we driving down to the port already? And that's the only place to put it. So that's, you know, like I said, there's a lot to the siting studies that we look at. And I mean, even including when we did Washougal years and years ago, we looked at what route we were going to take. And it turned out that we thought we were going to go down Highway 14, which would seem shorter, but really when we go to the Wasco landfill and the Dalles, it's actually road hours wise or road time wise, much quicker to go back to 205, cross, and come up 84. So, I mean, sometimes it happens after the fact, once we know where we're going to put this facility. And remember, contracts and change over time. And with this, you know, being such a long-term facility and quite frankly, this is a 3-year process just to even figure out if we can site one. And once we get down to 5 sites and we do the focus site study, I mean, they may all fall out. I've seen it before. So anyway, like I said, we'll go ahead and put your comments in there and we'll talk to Parametrics and see what they want to do with this. If they want to add a criteria to that as well, which we could do. Proximity to rail, give it 5 points if it's close, but it's not going to be a pass fail. I can tell you that.
Or you can add something.
Oh, I was gonna, it's very similar, is that you don't have to have a rail spur to still be able to use rail. And so I think wherever the transfer station ends up, you'll look at all, you know, trucking, rail, because there's intermodal yards and everything. And so really it just becomes the distance. Obviously location will favor some over the others. But usually you would want to consider all 3 when you're evaluating transportation. So I think, you know, that could be a bonus, but it also it doesn't exclude you from using rail if you don't have a spur.
And just a side note, you know, with Will's experience at Metro, they chose trucking over rail and have consistently done so. Even though they evaluated barge, they evaluated rail, you know, that's kind of where that on-time delivery is so important.
Yeah, I would just a little caveat with that. So Metro put a high priority on the environmental impacts going through the gorge, and because of particulate matter, NOx, and things like that, that's where trucking, I think, you know, there are efficiencies if you're just looking at pure cost for rail. But that was the thing, was that there was no guarantee of tier 3 train engines or barges. And so they kind of got hammered on that for environmental reasons, not necessarily for cost and efficiency. So just as a you know, that was a metro value. We'll establish our own values here, right?
Well, once again, if you're interested in getting, providing comments, please, just let Amanda know, and we'll go ahead and just send out, criteria and the programming out to all the members. Amanda?
Will you?
The comment period, it's not clearly set, it doesn't look like.
But you can still send me comments and I can make sure that our.
And these are for the broad public as well, right? And next time we meet, that comment period will be closed, is that right?
We have no,
It hasn't been open yet.
I think we're still evaluating the criteria themselves.
You're thinking about the August, September dates for public engagement, like that being the comment period, is that?
I'm seeing public information workshops, August, September, site screening, and then, yeah.
I believe that's been pushed back now. I think that's what Mike said, that.
Yeah, that's not realistic. We're already in August, and it took, the SRC longer than we expected to get them together because of, you know, vacations and holidays and whatnot. So we just finished that comment period. We gave them, that folks the 2 weeks. We'd like to see if you do have comments, if you can get them back to us in a couple of weeks, we'd appreciate that. And, you know, and you're correct, we will be taking some comments from the public at some point once we start to shop this out. And that's part of the public information plan. That's, under Sarah's group, Sarah Kearns.
Mhm. So real public engagements scheduled further out, probably next year. And
Well,
Typically, it will begin in the fall, depending. I mean, so all of the communications with the public are really gonna follow the work on developing the criteria.
okay,
And yes, like we will be doing some very targeted kind of work and also some broader public comment. And we have 2 people on the team that are kind of supporting that effort. We're just not at that stage of the project yet.
And you guys will send out an email to you guys for your comments. Absolutely.
okay. Yeah, I guess I'm just very curious to know more about the public engagement timeline, which seems really vague to me. And I'm like, is this happening in the next like 2-3 months? Like,
No, you will be in the know.
will we have a meeting before the public comment is open?
Our next meeting's November.
Right.
So I mean, I just feel like the timeline on this got pushed way out. So I was thinking we weren't gonna get there till January.
If I had to guess, I would say, I mean, crystal ball wise, like definitely see you in November and then we'll discuss the timeline.
And we can even incorporate that into the timeline that, hey, we want to make sure that SWAC is part of this before.
I would appreciate like more discussion on what the public comment looks like. I think this is a very high impact decision for the next like 60 years. And I think a robust public comment process would be worthwhile.
Yeah, we definitely.
Absolutely. That is the intention. I think, you know, with the preliminary, the project timeline at the high level that Mike talked about and spoke to for public engagement, I mean, that sort of just got pushed out and we haven't revisited kind of the specifics and the milestones for the public comment and the communication in general.
yeah, one of the things from a cost benefit standpoint is, by completing a very high level, broad search, we're going to know where to target that education far better than if we're just scattershot across the county when we know we're not going to have a facility out in Yakult. And that's when we initially looked at the public participation plan or public information plan. They just had kind of thrown the kitchen sink in as far as the outreach, and that's just not cost effective to do it that way. I mean, we really need to know in general where we're going to focus that outreach and get to that community.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yep.
I think I'm about to be expired out here by our our security.
All right, thank you so much for the update.
Thank you, folks, and we will definitely keep you updated. Please send us your comments as soon as you get a chance.
Perfect, thank you. Moving on to solid waste education and outreach, Sarah.
I'm gonna come on down.
Yeah, come on down. Come take the hot seat.
Yeah, and I guess just for the sake of some of our new SWAC members, just to let everyone know, Sarah Kearns, and I oversee our education and outreach programming, which is essentially helping educate schools, businesses, residents, how to function, like how to not contaminate our recycling, how to prevent waste, and all of those things. So we have some very mature programming that kind of reflects all of those efforts over the decades to reach our residents and schools and businesses. So quick updates. So we have a We Compost that's a pilot project that's been community hubs are set up throughout the county, and we've collected over 40 tons of food scraps this year through that program, which is pretty significant. And we're seeing increased participation at each of the sites. So that's been a real big success. Another highlight is that we, over the spring, since our last meeting in May, we've engaged with over 2,000 people through our presentations and workshops and by tabling at community events. And some of those people were reached through our composter recycler volunteers that are trained annually in the winter to learn about waste prevention and toxics reduction and how to prevent food waste, and then composting practices. And then they're able to go out into the community and teach others about what we're working on. So we've been able to increase those volunteer hours, and that's been a goal of ours for the last couple of years. And we've been working on different methods of doing that. Currently, the outreach team is partnering with Waste Connections and the City of Vancouver on the annual fall mailer. Waste Connections leads that work, and we are reviewers and supporters. And it's a big lift, and things are going really well this year. I'm excited for that to get out to all your mailboxes. And then just looking forward, so part of our evaluation of professional services and how we're going to operate moving forward, we have sites, websites that are hosted externally from the county, and we are eliminating those and pulling our education and outreach content back to our county website, which it's a heavy lift. And so my entire team is working on that between now and the end of the year, and we hope to launch our new pages on the county site at the beginning of next year. And some of the benefits of that is we offer a lot of great programming through Compost Earth, Cycler, through Green Neighbors, through Green Business, and our other programming, and it's not necessarily identified as county programming. And so we'll have that, just kind of like tied in with all the rest. And I'll leave it at that. I know we don't have a lot of time today, and I'm not even the solid waste management plan, Sarah, so I'll get out of here. Unless there are any questions, or you can hit me up after, send me an email.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Sarah. City of Vancouver, Will.
Yeah, so I will try to see if we can make up some time. Last time I was here, I gave an update on our request for proposals for recyclables processing. Basically, we know that as part of the MSA, eventually the MRF there at West Van will need to be relocated due to old age and basically a need for space. We did begin negotiations with CRC, but those came to an end, and we realized that really we needed to do a competitive procurement for that. We have really nailed down what we would call like CB level work as far as developing the scope of work, the RFP, and some of the contract language that we want to issue with that RFP. We had thought we would be able to get that out in July. Clearly that has not happened, and the goal is really by the end of August, hopefully, to get that out. One thing that's really important for the team is understanding that while we want to consider existing facilities, we also want to make sure that people who are considering new facilities have the opportunity to do due diligence. So really the idea is to leave that open for about 3 months, which is fairly long for an RFP, but not if you're trying to find a site and work out details on that. So that was very important to the team. The next thing is, and I don't want to steal Sarah's thunder, but Sarah, myself, and Julie Gilbertson went to council to inform them about Monday's basically resolution of adoption for the comprehensive solid waste management plan. We're very excited about that. I'm sure everybody is very excited about that. And I'll let Sarah talk more about that when she gives her update. One thing just to mention, all of our AmeriCorps at the city have moved on. They finished their term, and I don't know if many of you knew Kristen Allard, but she was our AmeriCorps with solid waste. And so we really missed her. She was a great part of the team, and she is moving on, although I suspect she will be in the area and we will bump into her regardless of where she lands. Spring yard debris and tire coupons, we're just wrapping that up with data. So that'll be, as we wrap that up, we're getting ready to plan for fall leaf coupons and also the drop boxes in the city. The leaf coupons will be able to use 5 sites, West Van, Triangle, H&H, McFarland's, and who am I missing? City Bark. Oh yeah, because they're new to the program this year. And so those coupons are gonna go out in August and September newsletters, but you can also request a copy from our email address, and there'll be a link in the minutes for that. It's solid waste rate season. Don't everybody moan at once. That impacts the county, the city, CRC. So anyways, it's an exciting time for us, but also a really busy time. And then one thing we're also really excited about is we have opened up a position for a solid waste planner position that closes, I believe, on the 13th. And this person will have basically 50% development review and then 58% of their tasks related to data analysis and program performance. So this is really exciting. We talk about the existing work that both the county and the city have been doing, and then all the new work that comes on with the MSA and all the new work with organics and the new works with the capital improvement program and the new works with the Recycling Reform Act. And we are desperate for some additional support. So we're excited about that. And also there would be a link to any information regarding that position. Hopefully that was.
All right, thanks, Will. Any questions for Will?
Real quick question. You said that you terminated the conversations and you opened it up for a more competitive bid. Okay, is that, from my understanding, the city right now is holding it a 10-year contract. And here Waste Connections, if I understand it correctly, if they build the new site, it's somewhere between a $53 and $63 million expense in order to put in the technology, new berth, land, the whole thing. How does the city take a position of only a 10-year contract if you're asking, or you've got a proven provider, and I have no financial, personal, or any other interest in Waste Connections, that doesn't acknowledge the fact that they're discussing a $53 to $63 million expense, and you're only willing to talk 10 years. Is that true, first off?
Well, so yes, so the county, so the county doesn't allow for contracts going over 10 years. That would have required a special procurement. The city did not feel comfortable with a term of the length that was proposed. But when you think about a term, and I think you're bringing up the price is very valid, is it takes a while in order to charge a reasonable rate in order to recover those costs.
And that's the point.
And we recognize that. The bigger issue is that once we got that dollar amount, we don't know if that's a competitive amount if we haven't gone out since 1988 for a competitive bid. So the answer is it could have been, but we don't know. And so that's really why at the end, that was one factor, but not the only factor that made us decide that we wanted to go out for a competitive bid so that we can go to our elected officials with whoever it is that is the proposer that we feel brings the best value, and let our elected officials know that we're protecting the ratepayers' value. And I say value because it's always not cost. To your point about a good service provider, that's something we want. Having a relationship matters, and we want a strong relationship. This isn't just transactional, but we need to be able to share with elected officials that we've done our due diligence and that this is the right.
How long have you tabled this conversation to move forward on a contract?
We began negotiations in February and ended them at the end of April.
And they're gonna start up again. How long are you giving yourself to find these other competitive alternatives?
Well, if we release in August, that'd be November when we would evaluate and then negotiate this winter or
Okay,
winter of 25.
and so SWAC will be involved in the November meeting as to your progress on that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And one thing that CRC and any other company that will propose is, unlike our negotiations, we didn't have a draft contract put together. So that helps any proposer understand what the terms are, and so it actually works well for all parties to really have the proper documentation, the proper expectation, really what we expect from the agreement, what we don't expect from the agreement. And I don't know that that was there. You know, we had a list of terms and those were important, but if you don't have a contract, you know, I mean, it's tough to kind of say, we want to dive into this.
We'll look forward to the details of the next meeting.
Yeah.
Good luck on that, both times.
All right, on to Waste Connections, Josh.
All right, I could talk all evening, but I'll try to limit it as well and focus on a few important things. I already talked about the leadership changes in our company, which I think were highlighted earlier. So I would say I'll start with my favorite topic recently, and that's wood waste. We've talked a lot about it, but I think it's probably beneficial for the SWAC board to understand and hear where we're at with all the wood markets and the challenges that have been really impacting us and every wood facility in the entire region. So the mills continue to lessen our availability to take loads into the mills, primarily Longview, where we took pretty much all of the hog fuel up until 2 months ago, I would say, a month and a half ago. So with them lessening their intake and their inbound volumes, all of the facilities throughout the region have really struggled with dimensional lumber and hog fuel and what to do with it. So really, we want to thank the city, the county for their work on some quick approvals to adjust the tip fee at the transfer station to accept the wood on the tip floor and go as garbage to the landfill. That's really helped us clear out our massive pile of wood that we acquired and built up through the last, call it, I don't know, 4 or 5 months. So we've been able to kind of, again, open up that lower yard to where it's safer. We had a huge fire risk down there as that just continued to build. So we made the decision, worked with the city, the county, ecology as well, to landfill a lot of that material. Unfortunate that it's not going to, alternative use or other avenues, but at the end of the day, we thought the safety concern was a lot higher than, waiting out to see if these mills will accept more. And looking back, I'm really glad we made that decision because we have not seen any improvement with inbound tons going into the mills with hog fuel. So that's been a real challenge for us. I guess just full transparency right now is at CRC at West Van this morning. The lower yard looks incredible. We've managed to clear out all but about 20 loads of wood chips that need to go to the landfill. We have taken just under 3,000 tons of wood chips to Wasco County landfill in the last several weeks. So a lot of trucking, a lot of loads, very big difference in cost because prior to this, we were receiving some money back from the mills on the hog fuel, enough to cover trucking or thereabouts to where we were pretty break even on it. Now it's been, a lot more expensive and challenging. We have managed to send a few hundred tons to our facility up north, which is Silver Springs Organics, which is composting it. But you're looking at distances and trucking costs and all those logistical challenges. So I'm optimistic that things will change, but I don't have that crystal ball on what that looks like. I think one thing that we need to, as much as I reluctantly say I want to talk more about wood waste with our constituents. You know, should this be a long-term situation, I think we have a lot to talk about on how we handle and process this material. The way we're doing it right now, I was on the phone with the landfill this week. That wood going in with garbage is now binding up in the containers. So it's hard to break everything up perfectly. So when it goes on the tipper, it's not coming out. And so now we're backing up customers, we're backing up the landfill. Further concerns that weren't fully vetted, I guess, when we made that decision, because we haven't done this before. So very challenging situation. So I think that's probably a quick enough update on wood waste. I can definitely talk for hours. I certainly prefer not to. A couple other quick things. So, you know, third-party tons continue to grow at the transfer stations. We've had a pretty significant increase in traffic flow, meaning everyone other than our trucks. When I say third party, so CTR is up 15+% year over year on third-party traffic coming into the transfer station. West Van not quite as much, but just under 5. So we've seen some pretty big increases in third-party traffic and tonnage, which is good, but also challenging to kind of some of the comments that Joelle mentioned about the improvements at the transfer stations. We are, accepting, from my understanding and looking at things, nearly double what they were built for on a daily basis. So very intense situation and challenging at the transfer station. So very proud of our teams to keep these things moving with what we're working with the inbound tons coming in. So, and as I'm very new to the whole transfer station world, it's pretty impressive to me. So I'm definitely proud of that group. Let's see, what else? I think we mentioned rate season. I don't know who asked if we were smiling or joking about that, but we're deep in the throes of that. And I feel like we're in a good position to keep working through rates and be on time for that. I guess quickly from our company, both hauling and transfer station staffing perspective, we're in a really good position. We've actually improved our turnover quite a bit at all of the entities in Clark County, which has been helpful. I think the labor market and the uncertainty of the economy has helped keep people in seats and in equipment. So that's been a nice improvement for us and kind of helped us stabilize our workforce and keep our people busy, but not completely overworked like they were for a few years. So I think the last thing I'll quickly update on, we've been having some pretty extensive discussions on our transfer station, our CTR transfer station compactor. Continue to fight what Brian Treptow is calling a gremlin in the computer system, where it slows it down to a point where it essentially slows down all of our production, adding another container, possibly 2 per day to the production. So it's been an ongoing fight. It happened again Monday for about 10 minutes, went back to normal. They think they've isolated the issue where they may have to rewrite the entire code of the computer board on the compactor. So that's created a lot of unnecessary diversion to West Van and a lot of our route trucks being pushed there because we are just bound up at CTR. So just more, some further challenges, but I'm hopeful the manufacturers and Brian have isolated that, even if we have to, invest in a major expense to rewrite the code or do whatever we need to do to get it back to operating speed. So other than that, unless anyone has questions for me, I think I'll keep it at that update.
I've got one. It's not related to anything you updated on.
Sure,
But
maybe I'll be able to answer it.
I live in an apartment complex recently, and I'm continually surprised and often discouraged at the things that get thrown in the roll cart bins. We got the blue roll cart bins throughout the complex.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that I've seen, worries me, from like electronics cords, household batteries, both alkaline and lithium.
Mhm.
And I've seen them in the roll carts. And actually recently I noticed that somebody had actually taped a bag to the outside of the roll cart. And I was like, that's interesting, because that's what you're supposed to do in a single family home. I caught the driver outside of the apartment complex and asked them, I said, hey, I saw a bag. And he was like, that's legit. If we see them, we'll toss them on the side of the truck and they will get properly sorted. And I wanted to see if that's true. Can we confirm that that's not just, I got a cool driver at the apartment complex? Can apartment residents more conveniently recycle batteries in their place of home using the blue roll carts if they set them on the outside of the cart?
Yeah, so, we just had a battery workshop.
Yeah, we just did an entire battery workshop.
Yes.
It was the county, the city, a whole bunch of staff. So we
Okay,
will have an update at the November meeting. We have been,
okay.
there's gonna be a lot of information that we're bringing. And even Travis might touch on it, some of the legislative update, I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I guess to directly answer your question, right, multifamily is challenging.
To be here.
In general. Yeah, we could definitely talk all day on
Yeah.
batteries. I'm glad you mentioned
Yeah,
it. And to our driver's credit, if they see them, they know that's not part of the normal service at multifamily, but they're definitely not gonna put them in the cart or put them in the garbage. So they're probably just taking them, knowing that that's the best thing to do, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
ensure that they're going to a reliable end market, handled appropriately. So, but to Joel's point, I think there's a lot coming on the battery front. And you know, I talked a lot about the transfer stations. We continue to have fires monthly, weekly, sometimes at the transfer station from all of these batteries that are in everything nowadays. So
Okay.
we had just had a conversation at CRC about the hoverboards.
Oh, wow.
Drivers have actually had those sitting there and like, shit, what do I do? So they bring them in, which is, you know, probably not the worst thing, but also not the best thing, right? I don't know that there's a right answer. So there's a lot of challenges, a lot of discussion at the state level around batteries, but multifamily. I'm glad our driver is taking them and answered that way, but it isn't part of it.
Yeah, I was worth making like an apartment-wide announcement. I'll wait.
Yeah, please do.
And then, just one more, which is just to settle a household debate. What do I do with this? This is a 2-ounce juice container. It's plastic, the white plastic lid. Sarah, you know.
Walgreens has a drop off for unused containers for their drugs.
Do you think that's where that
Well,
would go?
I would.
This isn't gonna make it through
Category.
MRF, right?
I mean, I'll promote, City of Vancouver is hosting a Recycling 101 class upcoming next month. But that is, we would inform residents that that's too small
Too small.
for the system.
All right, taking it back from the household.
I can get rid of it for you very easily if you'd like.
I'll bring them here quarterly.
Pays no
We go through the- Thanks.
All right, thanks, Josh. Moving on, comprehensive solid waste management plan, Sarah Schroeder.
Hello. Will kind of took all my thunder. Just kidding. He did not take all my thunder. But what he said was true. I'm trying to figure out how to share it. There it is. So I have a pretty brief presentation just to kind of give you a visual of, can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay, slideshow. I haven't done Zoom for ages. Okay. Oh, give subtitles a try. Here we go. Okay, so this is just gonna be pretty brief, high level. I do want to give a couple of comments because I do know that we have some newer people on here. Solid waste management planning is managed under RCW 70A205. Switch the layout. Thank you, Tatum. How do I do that?
Display up top.
Display. Like, that's not right.
Nope, swap presenter.
What did I just do? Play from beginning, like that?
Perfect.
Okay, cool. Sorry. So thank you, Tatum. RCW 70A205 is what I was saying. Within that RCW, it outlines a requirement for counties across the state to have a comprehensive solid waste management plan. Those plans are supposed to be, they're considered current if they're within a 5-year period. They're supposed to plan for 6 years of capital improvements, and they're also supposed to be projecting ahead for the next 20 years. So we have been working on this for a while. we've been working using the Ecology's guidelines for development of local comprehensive solid waste management plans and plan revisions. Their guidelines are currently under revision, but when the time that we started, this was the one that we were using. So we're still using the 2010 version. We've gone through a lot of the process. We started with the plan review. We've worked with SWAC. We had some very targeted meetings with SWAC talking about specific chapters. We've submitted it to Ecology for preliminary review. We've gone through a SEPA, and we are now at the end. I was going to get everybody noisemakers so you could like shake them, but I didn't remember to do that. So we are currently at the plan adoption phase. So since we last met in May, we have had a lot of progress with the resolution of adoptions. We passed in Yakult. This is where I was going to have you do the noisemakers. We passed in La Center, Battleground, Camas, Ridgefield, and on July 28th, Joelle and I participated in a workshop with Washougal. Will already mentioned that Julie, him, and I were able to present at the Vancouver Council, and we are expecting both Washougal and Vancouver to pass these through consent agenda on the 11th. So I kind of wish our SWAC meeting was next week, but that is why I did put the SWAC meeting in here too, just to show you. So next week, we should have all of our cities and town officially signed to adopt this plan. What is next? Once we get all of those ROAs signed, we're going to be bringing it forward to Clark County Council on September 23rd. They're requiring, we're required to do a public hearing since it's going to impact the comprehensive management, the comprehensive Clark County plan. I'm totally saying that name wrong, but it is going to be required a public hearing. So we're going to be there presenting and available to answer any questions if you want to come or just watch as well as fun. Once we have all the signed resolutions of adoption, those are going to be put together and created into an appendix for the plan, and we're going to be submitting that as a complete package to Ecology before our October 25th deadline. As a reminder, as part of the Ecology of their updated processes, they are now asking for all plans to be submitted, which within 365 days of their feedback and coming back our way. So we are cutting it a little close, but I really believe we're going to be doing this. Once we then get all everything signed, we're going to be submitting that to Ecology for their official stamp of approval. And then we move into the part where we actually get to do all the work, and we're going to be implementing. One of the other things that I wanted to highlight again, I know that we talked about this in our earlier meetings, but these plans are a snapshot in time. They're very valuable. They give us more current data. They give us more current regional, like what's actually happening in our region, but they are just a snapshot in time. And there's a lot of legislative changes that occurred during our plan revision process. And there's a lot that have taken place after we submitted it to be evaluated and approved under Ecology's guidelines. So this is not a one and done. We're very excited to get it adopted, but I do want to make sure that I reiterate that we're going to be also developing processes for making sure that we are staying current within legislative changes, and that we're also going to be creating mechanisms to allow feedback throughout the time that we're not actively revising it. So there will be some system in place to make sure that we are keeping this in current condition. That's really all I had. So it's not a lot. We definitely are coming to the end of this process, which is very exciting. We started this process when I started almost 2 years ago. So it's been quite a lot of work, but are there any questions with where we're at?
So I should show up to Vancouver City Council meeting on Monday and share when they.
Yes, noisemakers. I was going to get those little clapper thingies and I didn't.
I'm sure my buddy Bart Hansen will love me for that.
So that's my update.
But I don't see any questions. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sorry about not knowing how to manage my Zoom. I'll get better. Thank you.
All right, new business. So bylaws were sent out a little over 2 weeks ago for review. Did receive with a deadline on any comments or anything like that. Did receive some comments after the deadline. Do appreciate your insight, Mike, and stuff like that. those comments really aren't necessarily bylaws, but more of just how we operate as an organization.
I was hoping that'd be the case, but
Yeah.
didn't want to record.
Right. No, absolutely. So I appreciate that. So, would like to entertain a motion to approve the bylaws, the amended bylaws as, presented.
I'll move the bylaws be accepted as presented.
Awesome. Can I get a second?
Second.
Never mind.
Okay.
Joe.
I tried,
All-
Mike, I tried.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, the ayes have it. Definitely want to thank Will for stepping up and helping me with that bylaw subcommittee and so forth.
One of the best meetings I've ever had.
We knocked it out well. All right, so, I will get those signed and we have new bylaws, which is awesome. All right, household hazardous waste, Tatum Flowers.
Alrighty, let me unmute myself. Can you all see my screen
Yep.
with the presentation? Okay, perfect. All right, so my name is Tatum Flowers, and I'm a solid waste operations specialist with Clark County and manage the household hazardous waste. I know we are short on time, so I will try my best to make it quick. And please tell me if I'm running too over time. Okay, so we're gonna get started, and we host these events. Clark County hosts these events in the North County region because oftentimes residents in those areas are far away from our fixed facilities that collect household hazardous waste. So the further you are away, oftentimes you are accumulating that waste, and we want to prevent, mitigate, and collect this waste from residents in these areas to not only protect them, but also our human and environmental health. So that's why we have these events, and they take place in La Center, Ridgefield, and Yakult. We just finished up our grant cycle, but these events have been taking place for a few years, and within this grant cycle, it was 2023, 24, and 25. And with that, we contract, Clark County does all of the organizing and coordination, as well as traffic control, and we're there the day of to prepare the site and things like that. But then we also contract with a household hazardous waste collector known as Advanced Chemical Transport, or ACT, and they do the safe collection and disposal of the waste. And household hazardous waste are typically items that are either flammable, flammable, reactive, corrosive, or toxic. So yep, I'm just going to dive in it real quick. Okay, so just a brief overview, education outreach, some of the data that we collect, some of the trends that we found, and what we look forward to doing in 2026. For all three of our events, La Center, Ridgefield, and Yakult, they are held in the spring, and this is just a sample of the postcard we send out to all residents. This includes single family and multifamily residents, as well as incorporated and unincorporated residents. And this is the back of the postcard just describing what we accept and what we don't accept at these events. And these are free events held on Saturdays. So the outreach at the event specifically, every participant who shows up to the event gets a outreach packet just describing some of the tools and mechanisms that they can utilize throughout the year to properly recycle and dispose of these hazardous items such as paint, battery, motor oil, and more. So this is just our event data for 2025. Our first event was La Center the last Saturday in March. About 200 participants showed up, 25,000 pounds of HHW was collected, and that averages about 123 pounds per household. Ridgefield was our second event, held the third Saturday in April, 27,000 pounds and about there was 335 participants that showed up. So this was our largest event by far and a significant increase from last year for the participation, which resulted in 27,000 pounds, about 81 pounds per customer. Yakult was 155 cars, 25,000 pounds, and that spread throughout all of the customers was 164. So just to wrap up all of these events for 2025, about 700 participants, households, cars, all the same thing in my language here today. About 78,000 pounds of material spread across all of those participants was 112 pounds collected per person or per car per household. So just for the breakdown of the events, hold on, sorry. Wait 1 second, sorry. Why did it do this? Okay. Okay, wait. Sorry, I was like hiding some things. Okay, so just trying to briefly go over this. I do have that spread out with bar charts and graphs and different things like that to distinguish what material we did bring in. But just to recap for 2024 to 2025, so these are all three events combined. We collected 86,000. So comparatively, this year compared to last year, we're down about 9 to 10,000 pounds of material that was collected. However, we had a significant increase in households and participation. This significant increase in participation can be a result of this year we added multifamily complexes to some of our outreach and communication about these events, as well as for Ridgefield specific events. In the prior years, it was only for incorporated city Ridgefield residents, and this year we were able to move the location and then expand our services to provide this free event for unincorporated Ridgefield residents as well. So that could be due to some of the increase in participation, and some of the decrease in tonnage could be a result of having these events consistently for the last 3 years. So people know about them. Hopefully they're accumulating less waste in their house, and maybe that is a result of our decrease in pounds and tons collected. So just some overall observations. I didn't get to show you the graphs, but some of our top materials that we're seeing throughout all three events are paint. Paint is our highest by far. It's about 50% on average per event, so over half and sometimes pushing over half. Paint related material, that's oftentimes people bring in like empty paint cans and stuff like that that cannot be recycled as paint, and so that is considered paint related material, so paint adjacent. Ammonia, like your cleaners, non-hazardous waste, things that people might think are hazardous, like car soaps, pet soap, things of that nature. That was another top commodity or material that was brought in. Motor oil, lead acid batteries, and pesticides were all kind of our top items. And so, yeah, some of some of the work that we've done on the back end and some of the improvements that we made, like I said, we're sending postcards and information out to multifamily units and unincorporated Ridgefield. We had a new Ridgefield event or new Ridgefield location. So in the past, it's been tied in with the City of Ridgefield event, and this year it was just adjacent to it. So it was on the same day, almost relatively in the same location, but again, we were allowing unincorporated Ridgefield residents to attend the HHW event. Overall, wait times were low. We had good county and Waste Connections staff helping support traffic control and safety. And then on the contractor side, we had good staffing levels as well. So I did not hear of any major complaints. I was at all of these events and organizing them. So just to wrap up, our car count for La Center and Yakult from 2024 pretty much stayed the same. Ridgefield Ridgefield increased significantly, about 100 or more cars than last year. Our tonnage compared to 2024, La Center and Yakult actually dropped, and then Ridgefields actually doubled, and that's probably due to their high car count. So overall for these three events, again, it was 78,000 pounds collected, or translates to about 40 tons, and resulting in 700 cars that participated. Last thing, we just anticipate doing kind of the same thing of what we've done in the past, these three events, and maybe possibly another, doing that outreach again, including multifamily unincorporated, translating the materials, and hopefully gathering more feedback from residents as how the importance of these programs and how we can improve them. So that is what I've got. Thank you all.
All right, any questions for Tatum?
No questions. Well done. It's good to see participation's up.
Yeah.
Tonnages down. I think that's good news.
All right, thanks so much, Tatum.
Thank you.
Now moving on to legislative changes, Travis Dutt.
Business setting.
What's that?
Much, how long?
Oh, you're in the meeting.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. It was people asked me. We are, and there's these slides that I was hoping we could put up at some point. That's cool. I'll start with the presentation and then we'll switch over.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, good evening. My name is Travis Dutton. I work with the Washington State Association of Counties. If you're unfamiliar with that organization, it's a nonprofit government-ish agency that represents all counties in Washington, so all 39 counties in the state, at a state level, related to issues that are services the counties provide or immediately impact the county's ability to provide those services. So I won't list all of those services. I've got a very bizarre portfolio of subjects, including solid waste, wildfire, clean energy, climate change, and then behavioral health care, criminal justice, and criminal insanity. So I've got a really interesting portfolio of things, but I used to work here at the County Solid Waste Program, so I feel like I'm very in tune with what criminal insanity covers.
Somewhere are you thinking that right now?
Where I am, sir. The ankle bracelet will go off at 8, so I need to have my so. So yeah, like I said, I used to work here at Clark County Solid Waste, and I've worked at a couple of different counties and cities in the Northwest in doing solid waste. So this is why I have this. So I'm going to talk a little bit about part of my job is I'm not a lobbyist, but I do lobby on behalf of counties. And you'll be happy to know that we don't have money to give to elected. So it's me begging and pleading most of the time. We don't make donations. It's all about relationships and connecting and really advocating for counties. I have nothing to give to their reelection campaigns ever. So other folks at this table may have a different experience when their organizations lobby at a state level, but you know, that's not what I have. So, so I'm going to give just a really high level overview. There's a lot that we could talk about just related to solid waste during this legislative session. Like a lot. The state legislature has not historically spent much time thinking about talking about solid waste management. The last several years, maybe 4, 5, 6 years, they've really come into the conversation. There were 16 bills. Now, granted, there were thousands of bills that were introduced, but the fact that there were 16 bills just related to solid waste is a big deal, and they've taken on very large things. So I'm going to talk a little bit about with those. So if you want to, sorry, next slide. I forgot. Why am I still looking at that? So I'm just going to cover a couple of things. I'm going to cover the priorities that we went into. I should also mention one of the groups that I support is called WACSWIM. It is the Washington Association of County Solid Waste Managers, of which Joelle is on the leadership team. It is made up of all of the staff, solid waste managers from all of the programs across the 39 counties. Some counties don't have a solid waste program. They have a public works director that wears every hat that's possible. Other programs like Clark County, Snohomish County, King County are massive, massive programs and departments. So the way solid waste looks across the state, very, very different. If you go to Ponderay or Ferry County, you're going to see a completely different system than what you see here. And there's quite a few reasons for that. But so I'm going to talk a little bit about the funding priorities or what we went into session hoping to accomplish, talk about what we came out with, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what's next. So next slide. So we went into the 2025-26 session. So we run on a biennial cycle here in Washington. So when we set priorities, we set them for 2 years. Any bill that was introduced in 2025, this last session that didn't pass, is still alive for the 2026 session. So we're going to go into the 26 session. We've modified some of these priorities, but we're going to go into these priorities primarily around funding. I won't go into each of these, but the biggest concern that we have in Washington is that all of our solid waste programs primarily rely on funding that requires garbage to go into the landfill. So we are funded through tip fees. If garbage doesn't go into the landfill, we generate less tip fees, and that puts us in sort of a contrary or perverse position given the state wants us to reduce waste and we all want to see more things diverted and sent to the right place. So we came up with several strategies, including what's called the solid waste collection tax, which is a sales and use tax on the collection of garbage at curbside and drop off. You're all already paying for that. It's a line item on your bill from Waste Connections or when you drop the material off. Actually, I don't know if it's on your self-haul receipt. I'd have to look that up. Anyways, it's a 3.6% tax right now. For previous years, it had gone to funding loans for public works, so roads, water projects, some solid waste. This year, that fund was mostly swept to go fund replacing fish culverts. So there is a solid waste collection tax that is going to fund fish culverts. So just to make sure you hear that, that is exactly what I said. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the others, but really counties in a whole have been in Washington have been operating behind the curve. We have limited capacity to increase our tip fees, especially when the state is also adding new requirements, sweeping the state funds that we have, and things are just in general getting more expensive and difficult to implement. So next slide. These were the pieces of legislation that passed. I'm going to talk at the end of this. I'm going to switch over to an ecology slide that's going to talk about, Will mentioned it, I got it right here. I always call it the Recycling Renewal Act. I never get it right. So it's the Recycling Reform Act. Is that, now I'm questioning, is that right?
Mhm.
Okay.
No, because I struggled with it for about 2 months.
Yeah, I think I eventually started calling it the Recycling Resuscitation Act, but I refer to everything by the bill numbers. So I rarely actually know the names of bills. I work with the numbers. So we'll talk a little bit about the Recycling Reform Act, which is will be a significant change in how Washington manages recycling. And there's a lot of unknowns that we'll talk about, very few knowns, but a lot of unknowns. So we'll go into that. There were some other bills around repairing electronics that passed. Some new requirements were added to the organics management programs that most of the counties are working on implementing so that we have systems across the state to manage our food waste and our organic waste. And there were some other penalties, and then I'll talk about the state budget a little bit later, but not a lot of exciting news out of the state budget. And if anybody you were reading the news this year, this was a year where if you didn't get screwed over with your budget, that was fine. As long as they left you alone, you were fine. We were fine this year. As long as our funding wasn't taken away further, that was what we were shooting for, and that happened. So knock on whatever this is made out of, but it was a very boring budget year for us. Very, very intense budget year for the state legislature, and it will continue to be. I've actually heard that during the short session that's coming up, so it's just January and February, so it's like our long session, but on is this being, yeah, I was gonna say on speed, but it goes much faster. Same amount of bills, thousands of bills, but it's 2 months, and so it gets really intense. anyways, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but I've heard that there will be no entertaining legislation unless it's generating new revenue for the state, especially things that cost extra money. And in fact, we're dealing with some funding challenges right now related to solid waste that I can talk to if there's time. So next slide. So like I said, I'm going to cover the EPR bill, and that's a big piece of what's next. But really what we've been doing is we're trying to map out how this legislation is going to be implemented for counties. Counties are trying to figure out the Organics Management Act. Big requirements for a lot of counties, a lot of cities across the state to make sure that organics programs and private service providers as well on how to make sure that food waste is available in counties that meet certain density requirements across the state. And that means collection, transfer, transportation, processing, and then marketing. All of those parts of the system are something that every county is working on setting up. So we're not the first state to do that. So we've spent some time really working with other states that have implemented this and learning a little bit about them. Our bill in Washington was modeled after California. So our solid waste managers group met in Ellensburg in June, and we spent a good hour and a half to maybe 2 hours hearing from California counties and their experiences around what it was like to implement some of the challenges, lessons learned, successes, really helping build as much of a roadmap as we can for Washington counties to do this in a way that's successful. So we're doing the same thing with the Extended Producer Responsibility or the Recycling Renewal Act. Oregon's a couple of steps ahead of us, and it's not exactly the same as ours. And I think they're getting sued as of yesterday, or maybe the whole, anyway. So I'm sure we'll run into stuff like that, but we're really trying to reach out to our partners in other states that have experiences here. And then eventually, hopefully, we'll have the opportunity to return that favor. Our group will be meeting again in Spokane, where we will finalize all of our legislative priorities. We will get updates on some of the rules and laws that passed this year that are still in development, and really just providing as much knowledge and education so that Joelle and everybody that comes to the conference can go back to their counties and start building out next steps and projects and figure out what they've got to do. Or it gives me the language that I need to turn around and tell the legislature that we need to fix. So we meet twice a year. Our next one's coming up in Spokane. We're also working a lot with our stakeholders, our WRRA, the Washington Refuse and Recycling Association, which represents the private service providers, environmental groups, ecology, commerce, all of the groups, Association of Washington Cities, our partners, and really engaging in conversations on legislation that didn't pass, trying to figure out how to fix things, how to figure out how to try and negotiate bills and work through things so that we can pass some meaningful legislation coming up. And then we're just preparing for 2026. We have a couple of bills that we're running, and then it's just me keeping track of all the bills that are being filed and keeping our members up to date, and kind of being that liaison back and forth. And as you can imagine, sometimes it's very difficult to get 39 different counties to agree on a single thing. So sometimes we have to take middle of the road positions. But for this group, largely, it's been really great. They typically land on consensus pretty easily, but sometimes it can be a big challenge, especially Joelle. But no, Joelle is great. And then, as I mentioned, Joelle mentioned it earlier, the Department of Ecology is in a panic because what's called the Model Toxics Control Act or account, depending on which one you're talking about, is a tax on gasoline or oil and hazardous substances. Because that funding, that money in part goes to fund the grants that all of the counties and cities get from the state. The increase in electric vehicles has reduced the sale of gasoline, and the most recent revenue forecast for anything related to gasoline took much more significant drops in the last forecast than anybody expected. So Ecology's been directed to reduce their costs against this account by 13%. So we just drafted a letter on behalf of counties yesterday. Joelle was part of that process that we'll be sending to Ecology, really fighting for the county portion of that funding because it's been swept in the past. And it's put us behind, and we're already behind, and this would put us behind much, much further, especially programs like hazardous waste, recycling, outreach, and education. And especially in small and rural counties, that's a good portion of their annual budgets to get everything that they need to get done. So next slide. Some things that we are hearing about coming up in 2026. There was a bottle deposit program that's been coming up the last couple of years. It did not pass again this year, and it just keeps coming back. So we're hearing it's coming back again. I have my own personal thoughts on it, but it's coming back again. We're also expecting to see some extended producer responsibility programs around mattresses, batteries for electronic vehicles, clothing, textiles, and household hazardous waste as well. A lot of these are going to be new bills that are unlikely to pass this year, but are in their first or second cycle. And often it takes, 5 to 6 sessions before a bill gets enough traction to make it all the way through. So, it would be great if they passed, but it's unlikely that any new bill or new-ish bill related to solid waste is going to pass during a short session. But there's always surprises during sessions. So we have our solid waste funding bill, House Bill 2018. If anybody wants to look that up, our sponsor has decided, Representative Dolio from actually the district that includes Olympia, has been a champion for our program, and she's the chair of the House Environment and Energy Committee. She is going to keep the bill alive and is helping us find both secure hearings in various committees and find a version or a sponsor for a version in the Senate. So if we have bills on both sides, it gives them better chances as they move through the committees and then over to the other chamber or house. So we're really, really hoping that picks up some momentum, especially with some of the funding and budget cuts that we've talked about. Updates to the litter tax. I don't know why I put beverage deposit on there twice. I must be really, I really have strong feelings about that.
That way you tell us if you
Yeah, but I don't know if those convey the feelings I have. Like, I'd like to see it not on there at all, but that's mostly personal and who's running the bill, less about the bill itself. Okay, next slide. And that's the presentation, and that's not my phone number that I wanted to give you, so don't write that one. That's my personal number.
Really, if you want that one.
All right. That email works, but if I don't recognize the number, and if you call me once, I will find you. Never call me again. I sent Amanda a slide that Ecology put together. Ecology's done some really great work around explaining the extended producer responsibility legislation. But before I pivot to that, and to give Amanda some time to find it, that was a lot of information really fast, and I didn't even touch on like a quarter of it. So
I have a quick one.
Yeah.
Looking back to the 2025 legislation that's passed, what is your baseline understanding of the Right to Repair Act?
it is a bill that requires manufacturers of devices, so phones, tablets, and I can't remember how far up it goes, but it requires these companies that manufacture to provide plans or instructions for how to repair their devices and equipment and parts to repair their devices to like non-brand affiliated repair services. So like if there's a phone repair shop downtown Vancouver, they're now going to be required to have access to the ability to repair those devices. So that's the Right to Repair Act. Tesla apparently hated it. They had their lobbyist was there a lot. So I don't know if that helps, but I mean, Tesla doesn't qualify as a device, but anyway, so yeah, so that's what that bill does. And that's a good one. It's happened we've been trying to support it for a couple of years now, and I'm really glad to see that one pass. So that's a good one for our program and what our counties have to deal with when they get stuff. So
Good question.
yeah.
You mentioned your presentation by the California counties in Ellensburg. Did any of the California presentations address the government taking over?
You say trains, I swear.
I said trains. I'm gonna say trains. I'm saying that.
I'm sorry, Mike. A little punchy today.
No, that's not. I have another follow-up question for you. Okay, there's been so much conversation about the government owning and operating the facilities. Does California do it, and is it successful, and have they presented for it or against it?
For the owning the composting facilities,
No, the whole solid waste management.
I would say the system in California is, in that regard, is very similar to Washington. It really depends on the history of how it was set up, what access and resources are available, how big the programs.
So you have
It can
no
come up
for
with-
it or against it rating of that topic.
I think the biggest concern is just getting facilities in general. Some counties have had to fill them in themselves and pay and raise the rates to build the composting facilities. You know, here in Clark County, we have a facility that would process it down the road, far down the road, but down the road. But there's transfer capacity issues, right? So that's not really answering your question.
It's approaching it because
It depends on where it is. We talked to a lot of rural counties that already had small composting programs in their public works departments and made it available for residents for yard debris. And they don't have enough material that they're able to put in, small updates and maintain their own small facility in places, closer to the Bay Area and in the more dense places. You need a commercial scale, and some of those investments are, $80 million just to get started.
Now, from a composting standpoint, I understand. We're talking about owning and operating our solid waste program in total.
Mhm.
In other words, we're gonna buy all the facilities for $1, and we're gonna operate them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you personally?
No.
Which one do you think?
It is proposed in Clark County that's where we're at. Was there any addressing of that issue successfully or unsuccessfully in the presentations that were made to you?
No, I don't think we heard anything specific, and it's a mix, and it works. And I would say the outcomes or the preference or what's best varies again from county to county, where they are, what situation they're in, but in any state, Oregon as well. So.
Okay, and a quick follow-up kind of along that line, with the sophistication and the technology changes in MRF capabilities, is there a expectation of more material being sorted for remarketing and sale out of our recycling efforts?
Well, let me draw your attention to the Recycling Reform Act, because a lot of the things that you've been talking about, transportation, sorting, the intention, and I'm sure Josh is gonna roll his eyes at a couple of things. I'm gonna speak as optimistically as possible and speak to the intent of the bill. The intent of the bill sets performance requirements that now the producers of products, of packaging and paper products, are now responsible. So I'll send this to Joelle or Amanda and it can go out. This is a really very high level and there's an interactive version of it. But this maps out what EPR recycling will look like after EPR takes place in 2030. So top left, I know it's very small. Producers, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, Doritos, Pepsi comes in, I'm just trying to think of some easy ones. I'm also very hungry. But they're now responsible to pay into an organization that is then responsible for managing recycling programs across the state. So what that would look like in Clark County is, zoom back out, sorry. So the producers are required to pay what is called a Producer Responsibility Organization, or PRO. That organization is responsible for funding the state's recycling program. And they have performance metrics that they have to meet, which means that if they need to pay Waste Connections to put more improvements on the MRF to make sure that the manufacturers of these are capturing as much of what they're selling into our state as the requirements say, then the PRO pays for that. It doesn't come off of your tip fees or rates entirely. There's some weird math in here as well. It's not.
We just touched on a bunch of categories of items that we're not getting right.
So
it's very interesting that this organization is going to be responsible for that.
And it's going to be same with Clark County. So that yellow bubble down at the bottom is service providers. Counties are in that bubble. So any services that Clark County provides, outreach and education, I'm trying to think, contract management related to recycling, they would retain all of the contracts and control over the system that they have. It's just that the PRO is responsible for funding improvements to reach these targets. So what the customer, hopefully what you will see is very little change aside from likely knowing that your recycling is more likely, if it achieves what it's supposed to be recycled and turned back in what it's supposed to be. You will eventually see reduced rates on your curbside recycling collection bill. You will see, if you live in a place that currently does not have recycling, but you have curbside garbage, it will expand the service area. It will require that service area is expanded. And you might eventually, or you might see more things added to your recycling list. So ideally, you shouldn't see a significant change because Waste Connections will still be giving the service it gives you. Clark County will still be communicating, but the funding will come from someplace else. And
That's someplace else though, in reality. And this isn't meant to be contemporary political, but it's a tariff. So the manufacturer, having worked for those companies we talked about, they will add that pro fee onto
Yes.
their wholesale cost.
what I will say though, is that from my perspective, from the county's perspective, and you can watch the testimony, and it's very different in different places. There's a couple of things. The prices of things, we're already likely paying that to some extent here in Washington. Canada, Oregon, California, more states are doing this. It's likely there. My hope, and I am not an economist, is that it is a shift in you will pay less at your curb. And that may be eaten up by what you buy at the grocery store, but you will be getting ideally better outcomes from the service you're getting. And packaging makes up a significantly small amount of the cost of a product. Like if you're looking at I think the example I heard was Oreos, right? The packaging is not that big a piece of the product cost, right? So you're going to see costs related to packaging. And I'm not going to, but you're right. I mean, this is an argument that we made and ultimately a big concern of when I talk about counties not being able to get on the same page. A good number of our counties were on that same concern. And I'm not going to pretend like companies aren't going to pass as many costs along.
No, it sounds like a good program.
Yeah,
It sounds
but
like a good program. Somebody's can pick
my hope is that it's a trade-off
Yeah.
or a cost shift, and that you are gaining the confidence that more of your material is going because Waste Connection is able to get better tech, whatever they need, and the pro is going to fund it. I don't think it's going to be a magical, wonderful program and everything's going to be great and everybody's going to get along and nobody's going to sue the state for some reason or another because of the program. But again, the intent and my optimism is really what I'm trying to lean into on this one. But there's also a lot of, I'm going to stop because my time is up and your SWAC meeting is over. But I'll share this slide and there's more information here. And more than happy to come back and dig more into EPR if we want to. But you hit on a lot of the concerns and there's others. I'm sure Josh has a list as well. So I keep picking on you. I'm sorry.
I just went through it in Oregon, so
Yeah.
pick on me all you want.
Yeah, so, and Oregon's program is even weirder. It's also like an 80-page bill, so there's no way to talk about everything.
As long as we don't do what Oregon does, we should be fine.
Fine, yeah.
Anything else you want to add, Josh?
No, I think I didn't even roll my eyes at anything.
Okay.
I was just curious if we would get an update in February once session closes out, if any of these do move forward or.
We usually get Travis to come once a year to visit us.
Go talk to cities. You
But
know
usually,
cities.
like right after the session, he's usually like tanked. So we
Yeah.
have to come in August, like after the long
Yeah.
session, he's like, don't talk to me about Bill.
You can just
Oh, no, we
get
tried.
an update or I can just,
We tried August, but to defend Travis, he was committed to some roundtable or panel discussion up in Seattle, I believe.
Oh, for the May meeting, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe.
Oh, yeah, and it's a come down from session, like I don't know how better way to talk about it, but you get withdrawal. Because you go from your entire day being intense and controlled for you, and then all of a sudden, nobody's calling you. You don't have to run to the Capitol, and you have to manage your own time. And it's a hard transition, like May is just like, I just walk around in my slippers with a ball. It's hard, so. We can definitely give updates,
Yeah.
and again, Ecology is gonna keep updating stuff, so their outreach has been good as well, so I'm happy to share with everyone.
And yeah, well, I'll bring an update because I'll be at the November conference and we just formed just today, actually, an internal group of just a few of us that are gonna be focusing on policy and the impact of these. So we'll
Yeah,
chat.
I mean, I usually track them, but I always think it's kind of nice to
Yeah.
loop back and just like, here's what happened.
Yeah, and just share information too, 'cause sometimes and just out of curiosity, Travis, because as Mike brought up, those concerns, this took several sessions to get through. How many was it? Was it 3 or 4?
There was 6.
Six? Okay.
6
So
sessions.
just so you, I mean,
Even this year it changed, like. It started with one bill. Usually there's small amendments. They just completely wiped out the original model and went with a whole new model. So even this year, so there's been at least 8 iterations. And this was the first year I was asked to stop testifying.
yeah, I do. I mean, I wasn't
Being a
even
pain
sure
in
it
the
was
ass.
gonna pass this year.
No, it was a big surprise.
Yeah.
They made some concessions that I'm concerned about to get this bill to pass. But I was surprised it got through, so.
So I was gonna say, Travis has tried to get me up a few times and it will work one of these days. I don't know if short sessions are the right time or if it needs to be a long session.
You want that hit, though. You want your first hit to be intense, Jason. So but if anybody wants to come up, there's opportunities. I'd be more than happy to have folks. We do a lobby day with our solid waste folks and we invite our Waxwing folks, our solid waste managers, but if there's opportunities, if anybody's interested, you could talk to Joel. So.
But to actually go visit the legislator, and not just rely on Travis to do our work and stuff like that, but.
They love hearing from the people they represent. They see my face talking to them about trees and fire and garbage, and then it just sort of, they get tired of it. And then hearing from real stories from the people that are in their district is really helpful.
HB 2018, you're working on that one actively, yeah?
Yes.
And it's like it seems like a gradual increase of the tax on tipping fees.
Yeah, in short, and I can send more information, we're working on some advocacy explanatory documentation, but essentially it would be a new funding source for solid waste programs for counties, anybody that has to do with solid waste management, counties and cities that bear the cost of the planning process.
So right now, there's currently a tax, but it'd be an increase in the tax. And you said it's a new funding source. So like, we don't see it in our financials right now as a revenue source, but it would become a new line item as revenue for.
The existing line item would likely go up. So it's 3.6% now. We're proposing a 2.5% increase gradually over 5 years. It would generate a significant amount of money to help counties. There's about $800 million worth of capital projects, like projects that are just behind schedule in the state related to solid waste, unrelated to EPR or organics, just to keep services going. So counties are pretty far behind. I mean, all infrastructure is far behind. And with some of the other funding that I mentioned going away, it would sort of replace that with something a little bit more durable, more resilient, and also doesn't depend upon us throwing things in the garbage. So you'll always have we're always going to have something. There's always going to be some garbage. As much as I'd like to, you're still going to at least throw away diapers and cat litter, for the most part.
What about land?
You can put that in little fire starters. Well, polyester, it's great to burn.
I think it would be interesting to see, if it is a line item on this budget right now already, it's not.
No. The existing solid waste collection tax goes to an account that funds loans for public works departments, but it was recently swept to address the state's lawsuit where they have to replace all of the fish culverts. Yeah, so that tax currently has never come to Clark County.
Okay,
ever.
But it would under 2.0.
A portion of it would come to Clark County, yes.
It'd be really interesting to know what that ballpark number would look like.
$50 million a year total. Once it's all the way up there, the base would be $840,000 a year plus a population. So we can, some of that's in the information.
And I think the biggest part is that it would be a direct allocation to the counties. It's not that we have to have it held in the public works board. It's like, oh no, it would become something that we could reflect as like guaranteed revenue instead of every 2 years having to apply for a grant that could potentially be swept. So we've been advocating for it.
50 million, 5 years out from when it's.
Once it's fully implemented, it'll be about $50 million a
Yeah.
year. And then that'll be split up, a portion will be split up evenly between the 39 counties and I think the 3 cities that do their own plan as a base rate, and then the rest of it will be based on population. We may need to make some concessions around, some of it going to certain projects in the state to meet organics or hazardous waste or something, but there's a lot to work out, but that's sort of the basics. So it would be a new line item once it was put into place, but that'll be a couple of years. If it-
The SWIFT model to replace the SWIFT.
But you don't try to replace the SWIFT because we want the SWIFT and this. We never offer I'm not gonna sacrifice anything until they tell us that we have to sacrifice it. So, well, thank you for letting me go over. I'm very
Yeah.
sorry. And
Oh, no.
I thought I was talking too
Very
fast,
good.
but apparently not fast enough. So.
Very good information.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Travis. So that concludes the meeting. Next meeting, November 6th, 2025. Right here in the same spot. Anything else? I call this meeting adjourned at 8:09 p.m.
Thanks so much, forever.
Yeah, sorry, that was really fast.
Amanda,
I know.
we get to hold on to these?
No, you don't. I don't have much time.